So we decided to focus on the ethical ramifications of drones as our individual topic. My name is Kendall, and Oliver and Kevin will be helping present today. To begin, let's take a look at some background and historical context for drones. A common term for these is UAVs, which are unmanned aerial vehicles. And drone technology has been used by defense organizations and tech-savvy consumers for quite some time. As you might imagine, the military has been a catalyst over the years for the development of UAV technology, which has allowed commercial drones to become cheaper, lighter, and more sophisticated. Even in 1918, the US military had its first UAV, which acted as a cruise missile in combat, nicknamed the Kettering Bug. It was essentially just a flying bomb with 12-foot wings made of cardboard and paper mache, running off a 40 horsepower Ford engine. Different kinds of drones fall into four categories. First, it breaks down into two groups, the recreational and commercial, which includes military, and then these are broken down into another two categories, being your multi-rotor drones and your fixed-wing drone. The common fixed-wing drone started off in the military, that first one made in 1918. And then the most common for commercial recreational group would be your multi-rotor drones, which people often use for taking videos and delivery packages, all of that type of thing. Next, we are going to touch on some of the major concerns of personal use and other major concerns under there. First is the concerns for law enforcement. So privacy advocates have mounted a lobbying campaign that has succeeded in convincing 13 states to enact laws regulating the use of drones by law enforcement, with 11 of those 13 states requiring a warrant before the government may use a drone. Another big concern is safety, being that drones can collect data and images without drawing attention, which leads many Americans to fear their Fourth Amendment right to privacy. Also, mid-air collisions, meaning drones must be able to detect a potential collision and maneuver to safety. In the event of system failures, falling drones are another serious danger, especially when they are used near large crowds. Next, Oliver will be talking about commercial use.
Hey everyone, my name is Oliver and I'm going to be talking about the commercial use of drones. So some of the most popular uses of drones currently are in photography, so for things like weddings or cool aerial shots that are hard to get otherwise. These are all common uses of drones. There's the agriculture industry, where drones can be used to spray pesticides, or they can also use their video camera to help identify dead crops or diseased crops. There's the delivery aspect of things, so Amazon is trying to have your packages sent by drone, for example, which is pretty cool. There's emergency services, so drones could be used to locate people who are missing, or maybe drones could be used to fly in packages of food, water, medicine to hard-to-reach areas. There's the internet access, which I think is particularly cool. Google is trying to make kind of a fleet of drones that supply Wi-Fi, where the idea is you could just fly this fleet and essentially you can get Wi-Fi anywhere. There just has to be a drone flying kind of near to you. There's the security aspect, where a drone can fly around a compound, taking video and monitoring for anything unusual. And then there's the entertainment industry, where drones can sync up with each other and deliver kind of a light show of sorts, which would be pretty awesome and is actually already being done. So this is just a small snapshot of the ways that drones can be used. We had you read an article this week which detailed many more aspects. So let's move on to some ethical ramifications. So first of all, drones are hackable. If an attacker gets their hands on a drone fleet, they could do some serious damage. They could run the drones into people, for example, and drones do cause fall damage, which we're going to talk about later. Drones also can interfere with airplane and airport traffic. There's privacy concerns that revolve around drones. If drones are taking video and pictures, what are they doing with that imagery? Should they be able to take that? These are all big questions. There's the airspace aspect. What happens if there's tons of drones in the sky? Who's responsible to collide? Things like that. What's the effect on wildlife? These are all big questions. There's the noise pollution aspect. So NASA actually did a study on drones compared to truck noise, and a lot of people found the drone noise to be more annoying. There's the job loss aspect. So if drones are used for delivery, a lot of delivery drivers are suddenly out of a job. There's legal concerns as well. So drones aren't actually available for commercial use everywhere. In India, for example, it's actually banned. It's against the law. You're also not allowed to fly drones over people in America, and there's lots of other legal aspects. And then there's the potential for misuse by operators. So not all drones are completely automated. Sometimes they're required to be flown by someone, and that person can do bad things with it. So those are all big questions. So let's go back to the fall damage aspect. So this is a study, it's linked below, where they tested what happens when someone's hit by a falling drone. The drones were dropped from a height of 5.5 meters, which isn't a ton when you consider that the average drone can fly at least 100 meters, which is almost 20 times the amount tested. So let's look at some charts. These charts show information on the AIS scale, which is a way of tracking damage severity. A 1 on the scale means there's almost no injury. A 6 means it's untreatable. And a 3 plus is what these graphs are showing, which is considered a serious injury. And 3 different kinds of drones were tested of varying weights. You can see the one on the right half is kind of the heavier one. The graph definitely shows that. But if we're looking at the middle chart, we can see the potential for neck injury. Again, from a height of only 5.5 meters dropped. So there's about a 50% chance of a serious neck injury if a drone lands on you from that height. A decently heavy one. You can see the lighter drones are down below. But again, when you factor in that this is, again, only a height of 5.5 meters, and the average drone will fly at over 100 meters, this raises some serious concerns. You can pause the video and look at the other 2 graphs. One's on concussions, and one's on head damage versus neck damage. So now I'm going to pass it on to Kevin, who's going to talk about some military aspects of drones.
Now to talk about military use. We're starting off, the government expenditures on drone technology consistently passes all other users. And from technically manning sensitive military areas to hobbyists throughout the world, drone technology has developed and prospered in the last few years especially. As we've already pointed out, individuals, commercial entities, and governments have come to realize that drones can have many benefits. As you can see, you see several of the expenditures from 2015 all the way to projected 2020 and 2021 based on BI intelligence. And one of the things to note from this is the amount of usage that the government puts into drone technology. And you'll see historical drone usage dates back to World War I, when both the US and France developed automatic unmanned airplanes. And for the last 2 decades, and particularly the last several years, we've seen major developments in drone adoption. Military spending on drones is estimated to be at about $70 billion by 2020, and drones are estimated by Goldman Sachs to represent a vital role in pilotless flight. And we'll see this throughout future historical trends as well. Some of the major areas of usage in terms of government usage is aerial footage for projects, as well as gathering information or supplying essentials to hard-to-reach areas. This is seen in several of the hurricanes in the past, how we use drone technology to deliver food to areas that were not able to be accessed. Thermal sensors are helpful in search and rescue operations, and geographic mappings of inaccessible terrain and locations are very helpful drones are very helpful in that endeavor as well, finding them. And they're useful in building safety inspections. Buildings are seen structurally through a drone, and footage is able to be obtained, as well as using 3D scanning of the building. Law enforcement and border control surveillance are able to use drone technology to patrol borders without having physical walls. Storm tracking and forecasting hurricanes and tornadoes as well. Drones are helpful in this as well as capturing footage of these when necessary. Target decoys, combat missions, research and development, and for supervision, drones represent a significant stake in our United States budget for the military. And you'll also see some pros and cons here. As far as pros go, information and surveillance gathering in hard-to-reach areas. It's a minimal cost to life and expensive resources. This is especially seen in war zones and areas where we don't want to send our fighters in. Autonomous interactions allow for intelligent insights without worrying about limiting factors. And this kind of goes to this this notion that we can send in our troops without worrying about their lives being at stake. And it also goes to the fact that these autonomous interactions can be coded so that they can be finding individuals and finding locations without worrying about the cost of sending a person on the plane or on a helicopter or some other military vehicles. And UAVs conveniently support high-profile, time-sensitive missions as well, particularly in the case of wars. We're able to use UAVs. And obviously some of the cons would be, we'll touch on privacy in a second, but conflicting government agendas. You have the United States government wanting to use it for one thing, Iran wanting to use it for another, say. And then you have to have laws for interactions between these countries that dictate how we are to use drones and how we are to use drone technology. And the distance between actions performed by the drone and actions performed by the individual piloting or autonomous interactions. This goes to the heart of how an individual piloting and dropping a bomb is much more real in the moment than it is for an individual sitting behind a control plane, like playing a video game, sending a bomb in, or the machine itself doing it autonomously. And then, again, going back to personal privacy, you get this invasion of personal privacy by photography and video elements being captured by drones. And this also touches on payload delivery, which is the bombs that we were talking about, property invasion whenever they fly over your property. And that kind of goes back to also the commercial element as well, with Amazon and some of the other big companies looking at drone usage to deliver packages. And moving into the conclusion, you sort of get this logical groupings throughout the year, right? So Generation 1 drones are your basic remote controlled aircrafts. These would have been maybe the ones you played with as a kid. And moving into Generation 2, you kind of get a static design, manual piloting, using a controller. You get fixed cameras and still photographs, but still no video. In Generation 3, you get, again with a static design, you have gimbals that enable low-level video recording. And after you break past these three, you start to get into a transformative design in Generation 4, where you have 3-axis gimbals, HD video, you have entry-level safety features, and you start to get the first resemblance of autopilot. And as you move into Generation 5, you have a commercial-grade product, automatic safety modes, which come factory default, intelligent piloting and autonomous interactions with airspace and nearby awareness. So you're aware whenever you're getting close to a tree. They have models that exist with that at this stage. 6, you start to move into a commercial grade product, surpassing MVP, and you get all the benefits of the previous generation. Your auto actions, takeoff, landing, things of that nature. And you get enhanced models that are useful in predicting flight patterns and using them in a commercial setting. And then generation 7 and on, as I would say, is your commercial and governmentally regulatory compliant products, the ones that our government would use in anything from surveillance to regulatory building maintenance. I mean, it could be anything. But you get these autonomous drones that are intelligent and they're all-in-one units that can be used. And that's pretty much it for the discussion, or for the conclusion rather. We'll move into the discussion with several questions that we kind of posed as on the ethical side of the dilemma. And you get, when drones are used autonomously coded, do the ethics of how they are developed and deployed vary from if they're being piloted? So basically, when drones are used on a code level and deployed based on code, do the ethics of how these are being used vary from when we are deploying them with pilots in it? And so you get that question of ethical, dropping a bomb in person in the plane versus being behind a game controller. Do the pros of military drone usage outweigh the cons? Should the ethics change for commercial versus government usage, and how? Would you consider drones an invasion of privacy? And are there any other uses for drones that we haven't covered? And again, those are